Okay, hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Rare Groove Revolution podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, Earl Holder, and today we have a special guest in the house. I'm here with the original frontman of the pioneering Caribbean funk rock band of the 70s, Demon Fuzz, Mr. Paddy Corea. Mr. Corea, thank you so much for availing time out of your schedule to come on the show.
Just call me Paddy.
No more.
That'll do. It's always been that way.
All right, well, Paddy, for starters, what are some of your humble beginnings as a musician?
Jesus Christ. If my memory serves me right, it was about 8 or 9. My mom's adopted mother had just returned from the States, and she had one of those, what did they call them? A Victrola, a wind-up gramophone. You remember those things? You were too young to know that.
Well, I remember.
She had one of those things with the big 78 platters on them. HMV, his master's voice, I think it was called. And she had a piano with the piano roll. You just set it up. It played by itself. And for an 8 or 9-year-old boy who'd never seen anything related to technology, that was a scream for me. I thought it was magic. That led to me messing around with the keyboards. And from there, I think, what they call it, ukulele?
The ukulele, the ukulele, yes.
The ukulele. We call it a quattro, 4-string guitar quattro, as opposed to a 6. Messed around a little bit with the 6-string later on when I got the fingerings down. And then at about, God, I was how old? 14? Was introduced to the steel pan. This stuff, this bad guy. Yeah. That was the beginning structure of my musical education. Self-taught. Never had a music lesson in my life. For a young fella growing up in those days, remember, there was no television. There were no so-called places for young people to congregate, and other than the library or school or the sports arena. Other than that, there's no way. So you made your own kind of, what do you call it, entertainment? You made your own kind of entertainment. We had a hell of a good time doing that. We got into sports and, of course, playing the steel drums, the quattro, the guitar, the banjo, that kind of thing. And
over into becoming a saxophone player.
I didn't get there until years later. I was about, I think, 20 when I picked up the sax. That happened by accident. I left for England. My old man shipped me off. Shipped me off to England I was 18 and 6 months. My brother, he sent to the United States a couple of years later. He ended up in Vietnam. I ended up in England because my friends were going to England, joining the Royal Air Force, Royal Navy, British Army. So he shipped me off to England with a one-way ticket. I think after my 2nd year or 3rd year in England, I bought a secondhand sax with no particular ambition about it. This guy, his name was Mambo, named after some kind of Cuban music. Mambo had a sax. He said he found it. He couldn't play. He was not a musician, had no musical, nothing. And he just wanted some money for it. I think it was what? I think I gave him £5 for it. £5 in those days would have been about a week's salary in England in the early 60s. Wages are very, very, you talk about cheap labor, Jesus Christ. Cheap labor. £5 was about a weekly salary in 1960. If you convert that to today's money, you're looking at $8. Don't laugh. 8, not 80, not 800, $8. But of course, Britain had just come out of a war. As we're talking about war, there's another one going on. Britain had just come out of a war, and everything was at its lowest level, really at its lowest level. Earnings, just about everything. Most people couldn't afford apartments in the big cities. If you lived in the countryside, if you lived out of town, you probably could rent an apartment or a house. In the cities, most people lived in rooms because like every city, I guess, things are so costly, so expensive. And I was no different. I lived in a room, shared a kitchen, shared a bathroom. But I took an interest in the sax shortly after I bought it, and it became a fixation. Within 3 years, I was playing with a local band. You know, what they say, paying your dues. I was cutting my teeth with a local band, just playing, you know, poop-a-doop and poop-a-doop and poop and that kind of stuff. But the influences, I think, I got into listening to jazz about 61, just before I got the horn. And I think that the influence, especially Riverside Records, Columbia, Blue Note Records, particularly Blue Note, who was on the cutting edge of the kind of funky jazz that came about after 1958. People like Sonny Stitt, Bobby Timmons, oh Christ, you name it, Herbie Hancock, everybody who was anybody who was on Blue Note, Cannonball Adderley. God, I could run a ton of names by you. And I woke up to Blue Note music being played on this little portable record player I had. I went to bed with it being played. So, you know, it is 100% saturation of this kind of music. That sort of, I think that set me on the right road, on the right road to become the horn player that I became. And of course, practice. If you don't practice, you don't make it. You can't buy an axe on Monday and want to earn $5 on Friday. You know what I mean? You have to do the work. You have to practice. I was lucky in that from the steel pans, I had learned, and the quattro, of course, I'd learned chord structures, how chords are created, how they're formed, how you could link chords to make a piece of music. Most other people don't go through that, especially soloists like a trumpet player. He will get a trumpet, and if he doesn't get good guidance, his soloing is going to be limited because he doesn't understand the chord structures. If you don't understand the chord structure and can't recognize the chord structure, I dare you to play a solo. You won't be able to. So that's basically the musical roots coming up to that time, up to the beginning of my horn playing days.
So what were some of your early bands?
Christ, that little band I played with when I first started, I don't even remember their names. We played in it's called a pub, a bar in Clapton Pond, East London. Geez, I forgot their name. But immediately after that, I joined a band called Igfud Tomaz and his Latin American Jazz Band. A hell of a long name. Igfud Tomaz and his Latin American Jazz Band. His name was actually Igfud Thomas from Antigua. But the agents decided to market us as a 2-for-1 band because several of the guys played the steel drums like I did. So we put it together and had 2 bands in one. Same personnel, 2 bands in one. Igfud Tomaz and his Latin American Jazz Band. So if you hired us, you want this kind of music, you got it. You want that kind of music, you want both kinds of music, you got it. Igford Tamaz and his Latin American jazz band. But there I was on baritone sax. That was my first love.
What led to the formation of Demon Fuzz?
Oh, that was way down the road. I had played with, well, I'll tell you what, I'll bring you up to speed to Demon Fuzz. After Igford Tamaz, I joined Mood Indigo. You ever heard of a British rock singer called David Essex?
Yes.
Dave was the lead singer with Mood Indigo. He just joined Mood Indigo, and he and the other sax player, Del Paramore, had seen me playing in this little bar in Clapton, liked what he heard. And they both came to the house and made overtures. And I figured, well, shit, it's going to be a step up, man. It's going to be a step up because they were working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. I was only doing 1 gig a week, not even getting paid in some cases. I'm doing it for fun. So I joined Mood Indigo, and I would say this, long before Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears and those bands, Mood Indigo was doing a kind of a jazz rock with a blues bass, because the band was blues based. We were doing a kind of a jazz rock long before I heard of anything like Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Electric Flag, one of my favorite bands, Chicago and those bands, bands like 10 Wheel Drive and so on. They hadn't come on the scene yet, We ran up and down the country, from Scotland to Devon. We must have played every little town and every little sleazy hall, union halls, community halls, church halls. Because I'll tell you this much. This is mid-60s now. I don't care what the historians say. None of them live it. I did. I lived it. I know it. There weren't many so-called, quote, clubs in England in those days. A place set aside as a club outside London. When you got outside London, you take what you got. Even in the big cities like Birmingham and Liverpool and so on, there weren't many places that you can call clubs. Later on, you had some sleazy joints like the Cavern in Liverpool and a few other places that came along and were called clubs. All it was a space. Some of them didn't even have a bar. They sold tea, coffee, Tizer, orange juice, milk, no bar. And sometimes they didn't have a stage. You set up in the corner and you played, and that's it. About late mid-60s, 66 or so, outside London I'm talking about, a few places popped up. Electric Garden in Scotland, in Edinburgh, Scotland, a lovely place. One of the nicer clubs I'd seen then. Twisted Wheel in Manchester. The International Club in Francistown, Leeds, owned by a Jamaican guy. Lovely place. The Bamboo in Bristol. A real club. Small, but a real club. One or two others in other places, but London was where all the action took place. And the best bands, the best groups. Even if they came from the north, they would come to London, have to be there to be seen, to be heard, and be appreciated. After Mood Indigo, I joined a group for the money called the Scatterlights, named after the famous Jamaican Scatterlights.
About to say that.
Right. By then, I was on tenor sax. What we did, we were a knockoff to the original Scatterlights. All right, we were a knockoff, but the powers that be know they couldn't use the name spelt exactly as it's spelt by the original Scatterlights, so they put S-K-A-T-E, Scatterlights, not S-K-A-T-A. And we went around the country playing Scatterlights music, earning a living. The best money I earned up until that point. I mean, real money, real money. So much so when the Scatterlights came to England, Tommy McCook, the second tenor, couldn't come to England. He had a conviction for weed in Jamaica. And the British Embassy there, I think, disallowed him a work permit or a visa, or whatever it is called, to come to England. So the Scatterlights came on tour with Alton Ellis as a singer, Jackie Mitto on keyboards, Lester Sterling, Roland Alfonso on tenor sax. Roland was the lead, virtually the lead of the band. And I got drafted in to replace Tommy McCook. What an experience. It was a masterful experience for me, playing next to guys of that quality. Roland Alfonso particularly. They did, I think, a 4-week tour of England. And that worked out really nice for me, for the experience, the playing skills, the focus, the concentration, that kind of stuff. Anyway, I left the Scatterlights to join Blue Rivers and the Maroons. That was basically an R&B outfit, with the mighty Blue Rivers as lead singer. He died 2 years ago, lived in Switzerland, had a recording studio there, died from cancer a couple of years ago. A hell of a personality. I mean, a giant personality. And he was also a tall man. He was about 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds. But on stage, you wouldn't believe he was that weight. He moved well. After the first recording, I think the only recording, Blue Beat in My Soul, I did some arrangements on that, and I did, I think, a one track on it. I left them to join some other band came on tour, somebody else came on tour. I'm not sure. What's his name? 25 miles to go. What's his name? Edwin Starr. I went on tour with the backup band that was backing up Edwin Starr, 3-week tour. In the meantime, Blue Rivers and the Maroons went off to Africa, went off to Morocco. And after 2 weeks in Morocco, they sent a telegram to Ziggy Jackson. Ziggy is the man who how could I put it? He had his finger in a lot of pies. He never became really big. He had his own label, Melodisc. A lot of West Indian artists from the 50s, from the first boat that brought West Indians over in 47, the Windrush. Kitchener was on that boat. Kitchener recorded for Ziggy Jackson. The mighty Sheikh Keane and Joe Harriet recorded for Ziggy Jackson. Lots of Caribbean artists that came to England in those days recorded for Ziggy. Ziggy was their agent and manager, and he approached me to join them in Africa because they badly needed a frontman, a soloist. When you're doing, you can't do Junior Walker unless you could wail. You know what I mean? If you can't wail on a horn, don't try doing Junior Walker or King Curtis. It won't happen. It wouldn't happen. So I got a ticket and went off to Morocco, flew to Gibraltar, got arrested that night in Gibraltar because I didn't look like I looked on the passport. I had a huge afro, big mustache, and a little muff on the side, a little beard on the side. So the chap who was in charge, I guess, he couldn't figure out, well, this is you, this is not you. So I got arrested. I had to stay until the RAF personnel. Gibraltar's airport is run primarily by the Royal Air Force. But they have Spaniards who work for them. They come across the border from Spain, come over to the peninsula, and they work on Gibraltar itself in varying jobs. This guy was Spanish. His English was simple, and he didn't think it was me on the passport. So they put me on the lock and key for a night. In comes the Royal Air Force personnel next day, take a look at the passport, take a look at me. Whereabouts in London you from? So I said, Stoke Newington. Really? I'm from there too. Whereabouts? He's from Kazenhof Road, and I'm from 2 corners away, Faubourg Road. So he says, where you off to? Morocco. Oh, okay. We walked out to the tarmac, got on the plane, headed for Tangier. First time I ever kissed the ground when I got off the plane in Tangier. Kissed the ground. Kissed the ground. First time on African soil. A hell of an experience, because back in the day, I mean, let me put it this way, simply and boldly. Back in the day, we were black. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We were black. And for a young black man coming to Africa for the first time, it was, geez, a mighty experience, man. Mighty experience. I had to take a bus to Rabat, the capital. That's about, I don't know, 300, 400 miles along the coast, southwards. On that bus, everything goes. Chickens, women, pregnant women, boys, men, goats, everybody. And they don't say no to passengers. If they're overloaded, you can go on top. Oh, God. Incredible. A hell of an experience. I mean, culturally and otherwise. A hell of an experience. Anyway, my stay in Africa, I think, is what brings me to Demon Fuzz. I'd never been exposed to anything other than the European salsa scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You know what I mean? And hearing a different kind of thing. Hey, what is this? Let me see if I can write it down. My writing skills as far as music goes is limited, but I'm trying to write what I'm hearing, you know? The Sufi Arabic scale in the little sleazy joints in the Casbah. We'll go there after we played at night, smoke some hashish. They don't have weed over there, they have hashish. Drink some mint tea, eat couscous, have a good time till the sun comes up. And these musicians, a fellow will have a 2-string fiddle, 2 strings on this homemade fiddle, playing with a bow. And this strange tonal stuff coming out. And several drummers, different types, different sizes, with different tonal qualities, and sometimes a belly dancer, sometimes not. And I think a few of us in the band was fascinated by the music. And we started experimenting. And for the rest of the time in Morocco, it was, listen, there's something here. This is different, man. There's something here. Let's get to this. Let's dig in this. And we dug. We honed certain phrases in the Sufi Arabic scale that gave us a little bit of a grounding into their kind of music. And I think that triggered off something in all of us, man. By the time we got back to London, I think we got back to London in late 69, November or so, 69. We were boiling with enthusiasm and ideas, musical ideas, and a zeal to listen. Let's get out of this bag and get into something fresh, new, different. We got something musical to say. We have a musical language to speak. And that brought us to Demon Fuzz. We sat down, we quarreled, 5 of us. We quarreled, we discussed, we argued, everything. And we got closer and closer and closer to a nucleus. We didn't even think of a name. But when you're a musician, you got to earn your living. If you don't earn your living, you don't eat. So each of us played with 1 or 2 other groups just to get paid. And we'd get together, we'd write, we'd rehearse it, we'd scrap it, we'd write again, we'd rehearse it, we'd change it, we'd modify it. And gradually, little by little by little, we started getting this new kind of musical direction that we couldn't identify it clearly in our minds, but we know there was a point when we could say, yes, this is it, and we got to that point. The only letdown was a singer. I think we tried 3 singers. There was one young boy from Jamaica, Horace. Horace was a good singer, but he couldn't get out the R&B bag. He couldn't get out the ska and reggae bag. He couldn't. You'll give him a phrase to sing, and he will sing his idea of the phrase, not the phrase you wrote, not the phrase you played. So we had to let him go. The other two, we tried them a couple of weeks each, had to let them go. And we were doing a gig somewhere. And there's a band from Shepherd's Bush. That's a area in West London. They had this singer. There was 3 bands in this. I think it was Hammersmith Ballet in London. And there were 3 bands, including us. And the other 2 bands couldn't compare musically, but when I heard this guy's voice, to me, that was the next horn in my band. I had trombone and tenor. When I heard his voice, I put it to the other guys, listen, I like this guy. And everybody went up front, listened to him. Let's give him a try. We gave him a try. And for me, it was yes all the way. He didn't sound just like an ordinary singer. He had a metallic timbre to his voice. You remember, what's his name? With the Temptations, David Ruffin.
Yeah.
That is the only other singer I've heard with a what would you call it? A metallic kind of tonality to his voice. This guy had that. Smokey, Selwyn Adams from Trinidad. He had that. We worked with Smokey for like 3 weeks, every day, every day, sometimes 8 hours a day. And we like what we heard. He was a bit skeptical because, as he said, you guys have a reputation. I don't have any. That might have been so, but his voice added that other line to the band, that other person to the band that we needed to make it whole. I was impressed. I'm still impressed. And most impressive, when we recorded, I put a spell on you in the studio. We did 1 take.
Well, that's an interesting,
1 take.
very interesting segue to my next question, because I was going to ask you, what was the lead up to the recording of Afreaka? Was it the practice? Yeah, I mentioned that you guys were practicing 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
So did those hours of practice lead up to it? Go ahead.
Yes. We hooked up with an old buddy of mine, Jewish boy, Elliot Cohen. Elliot had a small agency called the Red Bus Artist Agency. Right upstairs, the Flamingo Club in Wardour Street. The Flamingo was the premier jazz club in London. And they've been around since 1934, I think, all through the war, the 50s, the 60s. Every big name that came to England came through the Flamingo. That was like one of the places that we called home at night. After practice, 11, 12 o'clock at night, we go to the Flamingo. You want to hear some good music? Place to go. Anyway, Elliot and his cousin, Ellis, had this agency, and we decided to link up with them. We started gigging up and down the country. There are a few places that we gigged on a regular basis who liked what we were doing, because many of the clubs, young people dancing, there's no liquor, but some of the other places had licenses, were nicer joints. So you had to lay down something for people to listen to as well, you know, not just dance to. It's not just shake what you got to shake, but let me hear what you got to say. And we decided that we're gonna create a menu of music that if and when the time comes, because we weren't sure we were getting a recording contract anytime soon. We were a little bit demanding and a little bit discriminative in that we didn't just want to record for any Tom, Dick, or Harry, you know what I mean? Or in any 2x4 studio down the road or something like that. It would have to be something meaningful. I started canvassing some companies, what do you call them? Polydor. It's now called Polygram. It used to be called Polydor then. The head of Polydor in England those days was Dennis Camper. Dennis was an old friend. Was way older than me, but we'd met and stuck up a friendship because he's in the business and I'm a musician, you know, stuck up a friendship. And he gave me some guidelines. They couldn't use us because they weren't doing anything futuristic. They stuck with the likes of Lulu, Dusty Springfield, Cliff Richards, Petula Clark, you know, that kind of safe, flat, non-exciting singing that they call top 40. That's the stuff they stuck with. So he couldn't use us. But he gave me some good pointers. Went around to a few other companies, some small ones. And I don't think any of them wanted to talk money. And my thing is, if you're going to get my goods, I need payment for it. Simple as that.
True.
If you're going to get my goods, I need payment for it. They all came to various clubs in London, the Q Club, the Bag of Nails, the Roaring Twenties, what's that other place called? Club 100, the Marquee, particularly the Marquee. And they listened and they liked. Well, let's talk money. Well, you know, we can't talk money. No. We got to talk money. If you like what you hear and you want it on wax, let's talk money. My efforts didn't pay off too well, didn't come out too well. Elliot had a friend at Dawn Records, a brand new record company, just started up, owned by not EMI, what do you call them? Pi.
Pi Records.
Pi, right? Pi was an older company, but Pi was just not a record company. You know? Pi was into, think of General Electric here in the States. Pi was the equivalent then, in those days, of General Electric. They made a lot of things that were electronic. Electronics were just coming into being. They even made guidance systems for missiles and all that stuff in the early days. Primitive stuff, yes, but that's what they did. Anyway, they set up this brand new, fresh company to tap into the, quote, the young market. And Elliot hooked us up with Dawn Records. Had I done the deal, I think we would have gotten money in our pocket. I mean, good money in our pocket. But I think we left it up to them to do it. They did it. They got all the money behind the scenes, and we got the chump change up front with a promise of more to come. And that promise didn't materialize. It is said, I don't know how true it is said that Dawn paid Redbus Artist Agency £17,000. That was a lot of money for upfront for recording in those days. I don't think we got 5. That is what started my disillusionment with the music industry in England. That it took a few years to materialize and explode. And that led to me leaving London, of course, in 1972. Disillusionment with just about everything. And of course, what some people call here police brutality, injustice, racism at its height. People think there's no such thing in England. There is plenty. It's not as violent as it is in the United States, but it is there. You can't be a black man in Germany or France or England or the United States and tell me you've never encountered racism once, twice, thrice, 10 times. And if you're a proud black man, you're offended every time. And sooner or later you will react. You know, sooner or later you will react. I remember in 1970, 71, the Mangrove Nine, the trial of the Mangrove Nine. Director of Public Prosecutions of England. This is the man who has a cabinet position in the government, reinstituted a case against 9 Black people, which was thrown out of court by the magistrate. He reinstituted a case, which is never done, against these 9. The case lasted, I think, 15 or 16 months. And you probably can Google it. It's called the Mangrove Trial. They won their case, and they were all set free. And the person that the police singled out as the ringleader, the restaurant owner, Frank Critchlow, who is a personal friend of mine also, Frank sued the Metropolitan Police in London, which had never happened before, and won a £55,000 settlement, which had also never happened before. Anyway, let me stay on the topic of Demon Fuzz. We did, clubs, bars, restaurants, universities. I would think they kept us alive. They paid us better than the clubs. But the clubs is a popularity contest.
Because festivals?
Oh, yes. The Hollywood Festival in Sutton Coldfield near Birmingham. We were earmarked to play the Isle of Wight Festival. And we were told that, and this is the usual thing that agents and managers tell you, well, the publicity you're going to get is going to be monumentous. It'll be huge. So we just got you in there because we have good connections, and there's not going to be any, payment for the gig. But we would advise you to go do it. And I said bluntly, no. I ain't playing for charity for goddamn soul. Nobody. Ain't playing for charity for nobody. We were not the only group that did it. There was a band called Free. They wanted them to play for free. And Free said no. The lead singer was Free. The lead singer was Free. And what he did, he went to the gig. He went to Isle of Wight.
Yeah, they played. Free, to my recollection, Free played, because it was around the time when All Right Now had came out and became popular.
I think it was Free that refused to play. If it's not the Isle of Wight, it'll be Fun City. PHUNCITY, Fun City Festival. That was another one. I think that was after Isle of Wight. But the story goes that the lead singer approached the promoter. Are we going to get paid or not? And he says, well, we're doing you a favor. You're doing us a favor. Thank you. They packed up on the left. A lot of scams like that took place. I know bands that had played some of the festivals, and on Monday when they went to the agents, well, we haven't been paid yet. Really? A lot of scams like that took. I mean, I know, for instance, Wilson Pickett, the great Wilson Pickett. Blue Rivers and the Maroons backed him up on his first tour. And I'm not sure who the promoter was or who brought him over. I think it was a fellow named Mickey Most who brought him over. Pickett pulled out a gun and put it to his head. Said, I want my money in Uncle Sam's greenbacks. I don't want this kind of monkey money you got over here. I want my money in US dollars. Because Pickett figured, a pound? What's a pound? I don't know this money. Pay me in US dollars.
And Wilson Pickett pulled the gun on his own drummer. So what do you think he would?
There you go. There you go. The wicked Wilson Pickett. Hardest wicked man on stage, man. Jesus Christ.
So
but we did Afreaka. We didn't name the album. That was the producer who was picked by Dawn Records, Barry Murray. I think I would have done a better job. I would have boosted the bass another 15 to 20%. I would have double tracked the bass. As a matter of fact, one track here, one track there, and the band in the middle. It was what? I think it was a 16-track recording studio. Anyway, Barry Murray named it Afreaka. Our name for the album would have been A Hymn to Mother Earth, because quite honestly, we thought it then, and I think it to this day, the best ecology song ever written about this planet was written by Crossbones and Roy. Hymn to Mother Earth. It's on that. It's one of the long tracks on the Afreaka album. I think it's 9 minutes long.
It's one of my favorites, actually.
Right. We would have called the album a hymn to Mother Earth, but he wanted it as Afreaka. Okay, you have it. Yeah, he wasn't much of a promoter. A producer, I should say. Sorry, not a promoter, a producer.
Why did you decide to name it Afreaka?
Afreaka, not Africa. R-E-A.
Afreaka, right. Why did he decide to name it that specifically?
I don't know. I haven't got a clue. Maybe because he knew of our 5 of us had spent time in North Africa, and we talked a lot about it, and we would like to go back. We talked a lot about the experience. I went back 5 years ago to Morocco and covered some of the old haunts that I did. But coming back to the recording, I was very impressed with Smokey on I Put a Spell on You. Very impressed. And when we did the playback in the studio, we all looked at each other and smiled. Every one of us was completely satisfied with the job he did on that. I Put a Spell on You. Yeah. We did the entire album in one night. We went in at about 10 o'clock and we were out by 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. We all
in one take?
No, some tracks we had to do a couple of takes. What was it? I think, geez, I forgot which one. One track I think we actually did 3 takes. One of the tracks in the album, we did 3 takes. I'm not sure it's past, present, and future. We did 3 takes. But Another Country, 1 take. I Put a Spell on You, 1 take. Geez. Most of the songs, just 1 take. Remember, when I say we practice, when I say we rehearse, we work. You know, we didn't come to sit down, smoke some weed and talk shit. We worked. We come in at 11 o'clock in the morning and we did till 7, 8 o'clock at night. And we rehearse, go over a tune, discuss it, analyze it, tear it up, eat it up. Let's go over it again. So by the time we busted out for the clubs and the concerts and the universities and the pubs and the bars and the whatever, the band was really ready, very ready, very ready. Yeah.
When did you start recording that? When did the band start recording the album? Because I know it was released in November of 1970. But when?
No, 9/11. Yeah, in November, 9th of September 9th, September 11th. Same as the World Trade Center bombing.
Yeah, 9/11.
9/11, 1970. I think we did that in, hang on. Released on 9/11/70. The recording was done, I think the 2nd week in July of that year. The 2nd week in July of that year. I'm not sure. I think it was a Wednesday night. The 2nd week in July that year. Yeah. But we were a reasonably happy band of campers. We had stumbled on something because of our experience in the desert in Africa. We had stumbled on something and we were happy like a pig in, you know what? in the direction in which it was going. And it was materializing right in front of our eyes and ears. It was materializing. You know, incredible.
Who was the guy on the front cover?
Hmm?
Guy on the front cover, was that one of the band members?
No, he's a. They had two black wrestlers in England in those days. One was African, the other one was Guyanese from Guyana. I think this guy is I think he was the. I think he was the Guyanese. Yeah, I think he was the. Yeah, he was the Guyanese. He was the guy.
The album with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got. Hang on a second.
Yeah, take your time.
I'm looking for the original. This is the original. It opens up.
Here we go. Here we
It opens
go.
up. See what I told you about that black and white picture inside?
Yeah.
With us
Yeah.
naked as hell with chains and candles. That's it. That's it. This is the original. Yeah.
Oh, and that guy was a wrestler from Guyana, you said?
Yep. And this one is the Janus bootleg knockoff. This one. It doesn't open. It's just. Yeah.
Coincidentally, was the same label that Samandi would later record for, which I always felt was sort of like a version of you.
There's a strange story to that. I have a friend whose name is Byron Lyfook. Byron is was my best man at my wedding in 1966. I got married on my birthday first time, January 1st, New Year's Day, 1966. Byron was my best man. He was a drummer with a band called the Q Set. He had a good buddy, close buddy, who was a sculptor, painter, and so on. And this guy had a brother. His brother must have come along to Byron's house and hear him playing drums and started playing drums too. Learned a few licks from Byron and so on. He became one of the founder members of Samandi. He was the drummer with Samandi. And they had heard us several times at the Ram Jam Club in Brooklyn, which was a masterful place for talent, man. The Ram Jam at the Flamingo. So I think 2 years after Demon Fuzz, this young band of, well, they were much younger than us, came up called Samandi. I think the hit was called what? Bra? The first hit?
Bruh. Yeah.
Bra? That was it, right? Yeah, this is 1974.
73 or something, one of those years, yeah.
Yeah, 74. Bra. I say this, I have no proof of it, but I think we were the cutting edge band that became the catalyst for a different kind of black music in England. Everybody wanted to play Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, James Brown. We did that too. But our experience in Africa had turned us around the corner and exposed us to a whole new horizon. And when we got on track about a year later in England, other musicians, yeah, I mean, you know, they get stumped when they heard, wait a minute, listen to this. This stuff is different, but it's nice. And everybody started experimenting. You had bands like, even though some of them didn't last, you had bands like Protoplasm. They had 4 horns out front, and they were trying to do stuff like we did. There was a band called the Newtonics.
Newtonics, you had also Osabisa.
OC basically came about that same time.
Yeah.
Guitar player was an old buddy of mine, Wendell Richardson. We still keep in touch. Then there was Imamzel. Imamzel is a firefly. That's the local Trinidad French name for firefly, Imamzel. This band was like the Ikfod Tomaz and the Latin American jazz band mix that we had, steel drums and instruments and regular instruments. They did that, and they did it quite well. I think they did it better than we did back then. This is like maybe 8 years after Ikfod Tomaz. But Imamzel had some damn good musicians with them. I think Philip Chen, the bass player, he played with them for a short while. He died a few months ago? Ever heard of a band called Jimmy James and the Vagabonds out of Jamaica?
Yes.
Right. Philip Chen was the bass player. Chen ended up being one of the damn great bass players of rock. He played both here in the States and in England. After Jimmy James disbanded his band, Philip went on to play with a variety of English groups. He died, I think, 3 months ago. But a mighty bass player, lovely style. Yeah.
Demon Fuzz to split up.
Hmm?
Caused Demon Fuzz to split up because you guys only made like albums, right?
I was the one who split. It had to do with money. Not that I was money hungry. I just thought we laying it down and we're not making enough money for what we got and what we do. One or two clubs would do direct deals with me, and I know the money we got paid. Deals outside of the agency management team. Your agent wants 10%, your manager wants 10%. If you have an agency management team in place in one office, you might be lucky to pay 15%. But what used to happen? They would get a fixed fee up front. That fee would not be written into the contract. So you get a contract for a gig in Birmingham, 250 pounds, 300 pounds. Let's make it a clean figure, 300 pounds. The agents already got 50 pounds up front at contract signing. He still wants 15 or 20% out of my 300 pounds. I have to pay my expenses, all the expenses of the band, the traveling, the bus, the gas, and I got 7 musicians and a road manager. So 8 people, because we didn't differentiate between who gets what. We just split it down the middle among everybody. In the beginning, none of us knew this, but how did I find out? When these guys would go to the Eurovision Song Contest, one time they left me in charge of their agency. The secretary of the agency had it, and I had a thing going. And she was the one, she was from Cyprus, she was a Greek Cypriot. She was the one who hit me to this. So I started looking at contracts, old contracts, and found out that they're not only making money up front on the contract, but they're getting 20% out of our earnings on the gig. That means we're paying them about more than a third of what the band is going for. And that led to arguments and whatnot. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to freelance. I could earn my living better freelancing. I'm a known horn player. I'm the baddest black horn player in England at this time. I could make a living. And I walked out of the band. They replaced me. The replacement didn't last. The band went to Italy after that, and they couldn't even finish the gig. They had 4 weeks at a club in Rome. What's it called? I think it was called Tiffany's in Rome. And I think the management of the club might have been disappointed with their performance. They came back after 2 weeks. The drummer left. He joined, you remember that Broadway show that toured a few other countries called Hair?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. He joined, there was a singer from Chicago, Marsha Hunt. Lovely voice. Lovely voice. She was the lead singer in Hair. And Little John quit the band and he joined Hair. And the band stumbled on for about another 9 months and then disbanded. By that time, I'd left England. I was very disappointed and disgusted, I should say, and decided enough. Cut it loose, say goodbye to it. I haven't regretted. I haven't regretted in one bit. Made a pretty good life for myself. Done pretty well over the years. I couldn't deal with the distances here in the States. I was playing with a band. You remember Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose? Too late to turn back now. I believe I'm falling in love.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that was at 1976.
75, I think.
75. Okay.
I think. I was playing with them for a short while because Eddie Cornelius's brother was a sax player also. But again, same thing. If you can't wail, you can't shine. You know, if you can't walk up to that mic and blow the house down, you can't shine. You're just another musician. He couldn't do that. He read well, he played well, but he couldn't wail. I could wail. This is what frightened me. We went from Richmond, Virginia to Toledo, Ohio in the band bus. Eddie and his sister, they flew to Toledo. We went by bus. Got there just in time to set up the instruments, get on stage and play. I had to come back to Washington, D.C. the next night to play. That got to me, man. That got to me. That got to me. So when we got to New York, Eddie, I'm done. I'm done. I quit. I worked with a local band in Brooklyn, Billy Martin. Remember the Yankees had a
manager, yeah, the late Billy
manager called Billy Martin? Right.
Yeah.
This guy, he lives out here in Queens, not too far from me. I haven't seen him for quite a while. Married to Renee, what's her name? Oh Christ, a lovely lady. Billy Martin was the band leader, guitarist. I think he came from North Carolina. He was also a small-time singer. The band did the usual R&B stuff, you know, Temptations, Four Tops, James Brown, Wilson Pickett, Otis. Yeah, I worked with them for, I think, 2 years. Did a few recordings for a variety of people in Brooklyn, Straker. Did a calypso recording for Straker, which I'd never done before. I think I had the A side of the record, and there's another trumpet player. I forgot his name. His last name is Scrub. I think it's Gordon Scrub. He, trumpet player, did the B side. I did 4 tracks on this side. He did 4 tracks on that side with the same backup band. Produced a couple of no-name entities, including the 1998 Calypso King of Trinidad, Mystic Prowler. I did his 2000 album, CD actually, tribute to Ellie. I played the steel drums on it. Ellie is the man who invented the steel drums, Ellie Manette, sometime around 1939. And between 39 and 51, it went from being a single-handed instrument to a double-handed instrument with a full chromatic scale. Ellie actually got seconded to the University of West Virginia and developed a whole program of teaching the instrument, the steel drums, not only how to play, but how to craft them, how to make them, how to build them, and how to tune them. Because, you know, when you hit an instrument, hit a note too hard, it will go out of tune. So every band has to have a tuner. And Ellie was certainly maybe the best builder of all time. That's the man who started Invaders. Same Invaders we talked about last night. Yeah. Ellie Manette. Yeah. I got back into playing these sometime around 76.
Is that the same year that you guys came back together as Demon Fuzz to record Roots and Offshoots?
No, we didn't get back together. That was recorded long before. That was recorded before I left England. Oh. I did that for my own. Oh, well, let me tell you about that. I did that for my own record company, Paco Records. Canon One Music LLC is the publishing. That's mine. We recorded that in a 8-track studio in Islington, a little one room about the size of your bathroom. 7 musicians in a room the size of your bathroom and a drummer. That was some of the stuff we used to mix in between for the clubs. Because when you play a club, boy comes to meet girl, girl comes to meet boy. They want to dance, they want to rap, they want to drink, they want to socialize, they want to eat. You have to play something that they could shake something to. So we used to stick some of these, because if you notice, a lot of the tracks on there like reggae and R&B on Roots. We used to stick some of that stuff in between. We couldn't load them up with Afreaka and all the other difficult things to dance to that, because if you notice, some of our music is 3/4 time, Ashanti rhythm 6/8, which is 3/4 doubled. Even I think we did a 5/4 thing in past, present, and future. So a lot of our music, especially a lot of the stuff on the Afreaka album, is not really danceable. But it went down well in places like the universities. Man, they kept us alive. I must have played Cambridge University with everybody. I played it with Bruce Ruffin. Bruce Ruffin is a Jamaican singer. I think he's a lawyer in Jamaica now. He had a hit back then called "Listen to the Falling Rain, Listen to It Fall." Da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun. Who did that? Jose Feliciano? I don't remember. But
Sure, don't quote me on that.
Yeah, Bruce had a reggae hit with that. We even went behind the Iron Curtain to do television, radio and television work for a weekend. I went with him because of that. He's a lawyer in Jamaica now. Did Cambridge University with him. Did Cambridge University several times with Demon Fuzz. Did Cambridge University with Blue Rivers and the Maroons. Did Cambridge University with Mood Indigo. Did Cambridge University with Freddie Mac Extravaganza. Freddie was a good buddy of mine. I don't know if you know anything about boxing, but Freddie was out of Brooklyn. He'd come from North Carolina to Brooklyn, became a boxer in Brooklyn, and became a ranking world heavyweight boxer back in the day. I think he beat the German champion and he beat the Italian champion. Anyway, Freddie was a hell of a personality. He wasn't a singer per se, but he was the front man of his band. Had a band called the Extravaganza. Had 2 drummers, 2 singers, a male and a female, a full horn section, 5 horns, complete full horn section, and he was out front. He didn't sing. The singer was another buddy of mine, Carl Douglas. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Carl Douglas. Carl came out of a band called Stampede. Carl Douglas and the Big Stampede. White band with a black singer. That had become the vogue in 1970, 71. That was the saleable vogue in England. A black singer out front and a white band backing him up. I could think of 1 or 2 others. What's that band called? Oh, geez. The boy just wrote a book. God. It'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, there were several bands like that. Most of them were put together because agents felt that is what the public wanted to see. So they crafted it in that fashion. You might have 1 or maybe 2 black musicians in the band, but usually it's a white band with a black singer out front. Geno Washington, I was thinking of, and the Ram Jam band, Geno Washington, black singer with a white band. You know, that was the vogue in 70, 71. But we ran through all of that. Look, we went on stage with some of the biggest name in the business, Moody Blues, The Who, Nice, Keith Emerson's band, Nice, Rolling Stones, Chris Farlow and the Thunderbirds, Zoot Money and the Big Roll Band. And I can tell you, we blew most of them down, blew them away. Blew them down, blew them away. But they were making double what we were making.
Are you surprised by the overwhelming positive feedback, appreciation that people have for the Demon Fuzz Afreaka album?
Very, very surprised. And not only surprised, it's a very heartwarming feeling, man. Look, I've compiled a page, a file, I should say, private file, with accolades that I've gotten from people around the world. I'll just name some of the countries: Spain, France, Germany, of course, England, Japan, South Korea, Austria, Italy. And what I do, I just file the accolades that they write after having been turned on to music, the music of Afreaka by Demon Fuzz. What they probably do is probably the same thing you did. Just do a search, any of the names or the band, and my name will pop up. And I'll get a note. There was this guy in London, he lives in Wembley. There's a website called Mojo.
Yes.
An English website called Mojo.
There's also a magazine called Mojo.
Mojo, right. I got my Mojo working. My boy was on Mojo. Did a blanket inquiry, a broadcast. Does anybody know Paddy Corea of Demon Fuzz? My daughter, living in Atlanta, she lives in Aquas, saw this thing. I don't know why she was on Mojo. She's not English. She was born here. My first daughter was born in Windsor, England. But this one, she and I are very close, and she's very close to my music. She still plays it, strange enough. And she picked him up. Yes, that's my father. What do you want? Oh, I'd like to get in touch with him. She said, well, give me your particulars and I'll try and make some arrangements for you. Anyway, we hooked up. His name is Eric Stiegel, I think. Eric, he does electronic music, has his own recording studio and all that. And he made contact with me. And I think he was the second person. This is some years ago. He was the second person that had done so. But the expressions of appreciation for the music and the details in which he went into it. Of course, he's a musician too. So he could help to explain a little better than the average person, you know? We still communicate every once in a while. His mom died 2 Christmases ago from cancer. Sad to say. Eric Stiegel, yeah. But I've had a steady stream of things like that. I still get them. 4 weeks ago, I did I think I mentioned this yesterday, a questionnaire from a young fellow who has a blog, I think, in Slovenia. Klemen, I forgot his last name, Klemen Brizakat or something like that. Anyway, 101 questions, which I really couldn't answer each one. So what I did, I read all the questions, remembered what I could, and I just started at the top and wrote right through and ended at about 3 pages and sent it to him. Primitive Man Music out of Texas. I did a audio podcast for them last year. We were in there for nearly, I think, an hour and a half, right? Questions and answers, and and over the years, I've had a steady stream of this. I would have liked this 50 years ago. I would have loved this 50 years ago.
But it's good to know that you're getting your flowers now.
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with it.
You're still getting your flowers while you're still here.
I don't even bother about the bootleggers because I know they're bootleggers. As a matter of fact, Eric found an album, Roots and Offshoots, in a record store in London that was put out by a company in Rotterdam, Holland. The company's name is Demon Fuzz. DEMONFU1Z, no space. Legally, they can do that, and I can't touch them. It's also the name of their record store in downtown Rotterdam, Holland. DEMONFUZ, 1Z, no space. And legally, they can do it and get away with it. But here's the crux to that. They must have copied the picture on the face of the album somehow. And it only got down to being black and white, because this one is a, what's it? What they call it? A polychrome, where you only get two colors. You know that kind of thing? You get a variety of sepia colors. This is the original, right?
The other version is colorized.
No, theirs is black and white. The bootleg version.
Colorized version at some point. Was the original colorized or not?
No, this is the original.
Oh, okay.
This is the original.
Oh, that is the okay.
Yeah. This was done by Passantino Printing up on 8th Avenue and 43rd Street. The colorized version is those who might have lifted off the picture from the CD. But he saw this black and white. Wait a minute, Roots and Offshoots, I have that, but it's not black and white. So he took notes and sent it to me. Suing them, a waste of time. They're not gonna sell a lot of records. I know that for a fact, even though they charge pretty high prices in some cases for Roots, for both albums. The mechanical rights to Afreaka is owned by BMG. What a hell of a system we have called the courts, eh? Dawn went bankrupt. So the entire Dawn catalog, Comus, Wild Mouth, Demon Fuzz, Atlantic Bridge, so many other good bands, good groups from those days. The entire catalog, owned by Dawn, was sold to, I think it was Sanctuary Records.
Sanctuary?
Yeah, Sanctuary Records. Sanctuary is a Fifth Avenue company here in New York. They went bankrupt. They sold it to another company, the entire catalog. That company went bankrupt. Who now owns it? BMG. And you know, BMG is a German-owned company. It's a tie-up between Polygram, which used to be Polydor, and Deutsche Grammophon. And Deutsche Grammophon is a German classical record producers, record company. BMG is probably the largest owner of recorded works in the United States, in the world, not just the United States. The German company. I think they own Leeds Music. Leeds Music was the Beatles catalog. I think Michael Jackson bought it, and I think now BMG owns it. Anyway, they own the mechanical rights to Afreaka. That means they can press as many records as they like. They don't have to pay me anything. But the recording royalties, the playback, the use of the material, I should get royalties on that. Or at least my songwriters, Crossbones and Roy, should get royalties on that. The music industry has lots of pitfalls and lots of scams. I would tell any young person today getting into the music business, own and control your material. First thing, no matter how you do it, own it. Go to a lawyer and have him set up a copyright company for you. It might cost you $2,000, but do that so that your material, what you write, what you sing, what you record is yours and not another entity's work, because they don't go out of business. They just get sold to somebody else. And those other people make money off of you. Even after you're dead and gone, they will make money off of you. Own your material.
you feel about, speaking of the music industry, how do you feel about hip hop producers who have sampled your music?
I don't have a problem with it. If they take more than, what is it, two stanzas, is it 2 or 4 bars? If they take or use more
Bars.
than 4 bars, I think they have to pay. They have to pay royalties if they take more than 4 bars. Other than that, I don't have a problem with it, man. If it,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
yeah, I look at it this way. Yesterday's music is yesterday's music. If new musicians, young musicians, and today's musicians could use some of it to enhance what they have to say, what they have to sing, what they have to play, and they stick within the legal framework, good luck to them. Be my guest. I don't have a problem with it. I would say this though. I think there are those who, well, you know about the bootleg industry. It's a big industry. I think I mentioned to you last night, there's a fella in Vienna, Austria. His name is Marcus Pesch, P-E-S-C-H, Marcus Pesch, has a company. And he claims he's on the up and up, and he pays royalties. Most of the people on his recording label are African groups. I don't want to say anything good, bad, or indifferent here, but his name popped up in conversations with people in London and people in Germany, friends of mine, that are still in the music industry and know about it, because we were talking about bootlegs and how groups get bootlegged and ripped off, and it happens. I remember there was a case years ago. A record company in Cincinnati was bootlegging a lot of old doo-wop stuff from the 50s. I was managing, well, the biggest record store in New York, Record Haven, right? You know where the ball drops?
Yeah.
In Times Square?
Manhattan, yeah, Times Square.
I managed that place for 2 years before I joined Mal Lucas on 125th Street. Mal was the younger brother of the heavy Frank Lucas, Harlem's, New York's premier gangster. I didn't know this at the time. Frank Lucas. I think Denzel played Frank.
Like a gangster, yeah.
In a biopic. Yeah, Mal was the younger brother. But Mal was the businessman, and he was clean and out of that kind of stuff. Mal had 2 record stores on 125th Street. Record Hole, when I joined him, I managed that and put it on its feet right across the street from the Apollo. And down the road, the next block, his wife and daughter managed Rainbow Records. To my left on the corner, where there was a Kentucky Fried Chicken now on 125th, there was a Record Hunter or something like that, I think the store was called. I put him out of business. I put him out of business. Competition, right? I put him out of business. Man had a one-stop. Everybody in the South Bronx and Uptown bought all their supplies from Mal. He had a one-stop on Broadway and 125th. He was a record wholesaler. Everybody, every record store uptown, every record store in the South Bronx, they came to that one stop to get their supplies. He put old Mr. Kalish out of business. They had a warehouse over in Spanish Harlem, and they had a record store left of me on the corner. We put him out of business. Tough competition, we put him out of business. In those days, the Apollo was jumping. The Apollo was jumping, man. Sparky Martin, I think, was a young fella. He was a Muslim from Newark. He was managing it then. And everybody who was anybody, it was like a resurgence or a rebirth of the Apollo. I'm talking 70s. Yeah. Isaac Hayes, Stevie Wonder, Marvelettes. You remember a black poet named Edwin Birdsong?
Absolutely, yeah.
right? Edwin Birdsong. And
He was related to Cindy. Yeah, he had a I think he was related to a lady named Cindy Birdsong. I'm not quite sure. I could be wrong on that, but I know I'm familiar with Edwin Birdsong.
even Miles Davis' ex-wife, what's her name? Betty. She died
Betty,
recently.
yeah, she just
Betty
recently
Davis.
passed away. Yeah.
Yeah, Betty Davis. So she was there. Why I mention all this? Sparky and I got friendly. I made him the house music for the Apollo on cassette. In those days, everybody used cassettes. They had no CDs then and no sticks, just cassettes. Nobody wanted 8-track. That was the dumbest piece of technology ever made. 8-track, dumb. Cassette was it. So I'd make Sparky up a 120 cassette so he could run his house music in the Apollo. And I get free passes to the Apollo. All I just had to go sign the book. That's all. My name was there, you know what I mean? So I can go in when I want, how I want. And I saw everybody. He even introduced me to what's her name? Sugar Hill boss, Sylvia Robinson, and her husband. They owned the Club Morocco in New Jersey. And he introduced me to Sylvia. And she demanded, I hope you play my records in your store. I hope you play my records. And yeah, we do every day. I think the hit she had at that time was Pillow Talk. Yeah, Sylvia Robinson, quite a lady.
So you were a record store owner. How was that experience?
No, manager.
Manager, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not owner.
So that was that experience like for you? Like it was like in comparison to being a musician.
A musician? Well, I was still a musician on the weekends and at night, here and there. It grounded me. And it was the beginning of change for me, of abandoning the music playing to get in my life on a steady track. And then I went to California and I met Melinda. And that was it. Fell in love. What a pair we were. Oh, man. Yeah. I enjoyed my time as a record store manager on 42nd Street, right there in Times Square, and up on 125th Street. And it weaned me away from the music business, because playing, as a musician, I would say, playing is very addictive. You can get wrapped up in it and literally say, to hell with everything else. This is it for me. You know, the love of the thing, the excitement, the challenges, the fascination, the highs. You don't look at the lows. You never remember the lows. Just remember the high points. It was all good. I went back to England 8 years after, myself and Melinda, and I was shocked. I left England in 72, went back in 1980, I think it was. And I ended up at a concert in Ladbroke Grove, where my band is from. And I was surprised to see quite a few of the musicians that we hung together back in the day, still doing the same thing, still dressing the same way, still talking the same mess, and hoping that one day they're going to make it big, and still playing the same music. No progress made. There was a get-together band on stage at that concert in Ladbroke Grove. You had Jimmy Golding on guitar. Jimmy was a brilliant guitarist. He lost his edge. You had Spartacus on bass. I think he was the first bass player with O.C. Bisser, if I'm not mistaken. He died a few years ago. Spartacus on bass. You had T.J. Johnson. We knew him then as Thomas Bedeau. We gave him his first break as a guitarist. When I brought in a second guitar in Demon Fuzz, It was this young kid, Thomas Bedeau. His stage name is TJ Johnson. If you ever Facebook it, you'll see him around. He's in his 60s now, and he's a champion bluesman in London. They can't have a blues show without him. TJ Johnson, damn good guitarist too, very good. He was there. A few other musicians, a couple of the guys from Protoplasm were there, and they were playing the same old stuff back it. And I'm saying, wait a minute, 8 years has passed, no progress, no movement, nothing. And that reinforced the decision that I made 8 years before to leave. Because had I stayed, I think I would have been in the same bag. Having made no progress in my life, but having fun, enjoying, playing what I'm playing. It was a
contact with any of the members of Demon Fuzz?
Yeah, well, the four of us alive. Crossbones is in Brampton, Ontario. He's retired. He was an accountant for the government of Canada after leaving England. He left England too, moved to Canada. And I think he left England because he saw the light I saw. I got very disappointed, very disillusioned with things in England. My bass player followed me here to New York 5 years after I came here in 1976, 4 years. He joined me here. He's still here. He lives just on the corner of Flatbush and Avenue H. The drummer is alive and well and living in Grenada. He lives on a little island called Carriacou. He was the baby of the band. He was young. Well, he was 18, 17 when he started playing with us, but he was good. And I liked his style to fit what we were doing. He's still playing, still playing. The other guys are dead. They're all gone. Road manager, Frame, cancer. Roy, the other composer, keyboard player, cancer. Brooms, Clarence Crossdale, trombone player. I went over to see him in 2019 because his wife had told me that his cancer was terminal. And I'm glad I did. I spent 10 days over there. We spent every day together at his house. Ate well, drank well, talked a lot of BS. Had a good time. And about 5 months later, he passed away. Smokey died from a fall, the singer. Incredible. I mean, how could that happen? He was still singing, but he had joined a youth program in London. He was a cabinet maker by trade, still singing. Joined a youth program in London to teach young people joinery, it's called over there. I don't know what it's called here in the States. Cabinet making, joinery, carpentry, and stuff. He was up on a ladder showing some youngsters how to fit and shim a window. The cleaner was there with a bucket and a mop. The bucket fell over. All the soapy liquid ran under the ladder. The ladder fell over, Smokey fell over, busted his chest, his right rib cage on the ladder. Didn't go to the hospital. He did not go to the hospital. He went home. He was dead the next morning.
Oh, man. How old was he?
At that time, he would have been about early 50s. Would have been about early 50s. I think he has a daughter in Leeds, England. I've never communicated with her, but I think he has one daughter in Leeds. Fell over, hit his right rib cage on the same ladder that he was up there standing on. Sad death. Yep, there's only 4 of us left. I was asked recently if there'll ever be a reunion. Hell no.
I ask you that question too. That was going to be my
Hell no.
next question.
Hell no. No, no. We did it then, we leave it as it is. Not only that, I haven't touched my horn in since I did that production for Mystic Prowler. Geez, that was 2000, I think. Yeah, 2000. Mystic Prowler.
This. Since that, okay. The what was that?
There are no horns on this, but I did some horn work in the studio for Afreaka at that time.
Year 2000?
Yeah, I haven't touched my horn since then.
What do you do these days?
I don't even know where they are. I think the soprano is in a closet in the living room. The alto is in a barrel in the garage downstairs, I think. I haven't touched them, and I'm not going to touch them again. I'm done.
So what do you do these days?
These days, this. Just for the fun of it.
Oh, the steel band, okay.
Yep.
Getting a free show.
Fun and pleasure, yeah. Just for fun. I don't play anymore professionally, and I don't play anymore with the panorama and that sort of thing. And on the road, I did my share of that year after year after year after year. I don't know how many years I must have played on the road. From about 70, I'm talking about Carnival Day, which is today actually. Today is Mardi Gras, Carnival Day, and Trinidad, and Brazil, and New Orleans. Geez, I played pan on the road from about 76 to about 98 every year. Here, Antigua, St. Vincent. I think I played once in Trinidad with Casablanca, Juve morning, but other than that, but a little too old for it now. The energy isn't there. The zeal you would have to want to play, that ain't there no more. I like to hear other musicians play. I'm very critical of them, but I'll never let them know. Because when you get up on a stage, I got a bead on you with my gun. You're a target. If you can't cut it, I'll walk out. Or I'll tell my friends, he aim SHIT, you know what I mean? I'm very critical of musicians. I could never be a musical judge. I've refused several times at various carnivals. I don't want to be a judge. I just come to enjoy. That's it. Don't want to judge anybody because I'm harsh. I expect if you get up on a stage to play for me, just like I felt back then, you better be good enough to titillate me. I'm paying for this. And back then, that's how I felt. If people would allow me to get up on a stage and play for them, I better do the best I could. Simple as that, man.
Well, if you could turn back the hands of time to the time when Demon Fuzz was still together, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I don't know. Never even given it a thought. I'm second guessing myself now. I would probably, instead of quitting the band in 72, I would have probably moved us to a different agency management and be more demanding with whatever deal we got. Other than that, musically, nothing. I think we did it to the max. Live, and do you know that our live performance of the same music you hear on the record was as good, if not better, than on the record? And I think we're one of the few bands that achieved that. Not many bands achieve the equivalent of a studio quality on stage. Not many people.
Any recordings? Are there any recordings that exist of the band playing live?
No. There is a BBC Disco 2, and BBC had just opened up a new TV channel. It was called Disco 2, and we did it a couple of times. I think we did Mother Earth on one, and I think we did Past, Present, and Future on the other. I don't know if the BBC has a tape of that. I don't know if they kept recordings in those days. I'm talking 71. I know there were professional quality television recorders at the Hollywood Festival in Sutton Coldfield, Birmingham. I think it was 1970. A lot of big names. Ginger Baker's Air Force, Radhakrishna Temple, Mungo Jerry, Traffic with Stevie Winwood and his brother Muff Winwood. Two damn good musicians. Little Stevie still is good. I think he's still alive. Yeah.
Been good since the Spencer Davis group.
Yes. He was 15 with Spencer Davis.
Yeah, that's right. Left
home at 15, came to London with Spencer Davis. That was an early British blues group that had some teeth. Spencer Davis did some good listening in his young days, and he put it into practice. One of the other bands in London in those days that lots of people don't know about, but he wasn't a so-called rock band per se. He did R&B. Georgie Fame, the Blue Flames.
Mitch Mitchell from Jimi Hendrix Experience used to play in that.
Yeah. Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames. I played with him a couple of times as a guest. Georgie was a damn. We've had several white copyists who sung close enough. Righteous Brothers, and what's the boy's name from Carolina? Everybody says he's a white boy trying to sound black. It's his natural voice, but it sounds close to us, if you know what I mean. If anybody got close to singing like we do, Georgie Fame did. Honestly. If you hear a cut, an old Ray Charles cut that he did, well, it wasn't old then, it was fairly new then. I'm talking about the 60s. Sticks and Stones. Sticks and Stones could break my bones. Talk, don't bother me. People talking, trying to break us up, all right? If you hear Georgie Fame do this, hard to tell the difference between him and Ray Charles. Damn good copy. Pink Champagne. Sitting in the park, waiting for you. I think he did one album with the stuff he did on stage, and he tried to do what they call it, a top 40, a pop album, and that failed. Those are the only two, but he was a damn good musician, man. Damn good musician. My friend Terry, Terry played guitar with him. He lives in Long Island now, in Garden City. Tanta and Eddie Thornton, Jamaican trumpeter, played with him. For a short while, he had Phil Seaman. I think Phil was the best jazz drummer England ever had. No question about it. You should Google his name one day. Ginger Baker learned from Phil.
Okay.
Phil Seaman. He died of a drug overdose. He was about 58 or so. But Phil was,
you ever played with Ainsley Dunbar from the
Ainsley Dunbar.
Ainsley, yeah, from
Ainsley Dunbar.
Mayo
No.
Blues Breakers.
No. John Mayall, I know, because we all played the same clubs, the Flamingo and the Bag of Nails and Tiles Club and the We did the same circuit. The Marquee was the home to that sort of thing. John Mayall and all those other kind of blues rock type aggregates. Yeah. I think his son runs a radio show and has a club in London today. Mayall's son. I'm not sure. Or had. I don't know if he still has it, but he had up until a few years ago. Yeah. Well, back then, we rubbed shoulders with some very impressive names. Huh? Hendrix, my friend Fuzzy Samuels, he played bass with Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. Fuzzy's still around, still playing. Retired, but can't resist the temptation to jump on stage and play bass. You know, he just had
play with Jimmy
Hendrix.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But we met through Fuzzy.
You met Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah, we met. And we looked at each other and figured which of us resembles who.
Okay.
Because we were the same size. Back then, I was 144 pounds, you know, man. Right. 5'11" and a half, 140. I was the size of a cigarette. And so was Jimmy. We born the same time. He's a Capricorn, I'm a Capricorn, 1942. Just about the same time. So does Muhammad Ali. Geez, if I drop some names on you, it will sound like I'm bragging. People that I know personally, rub shoulders with, and incredible. But
you ever met Sly Stone?
No, never met Sly. But a British newspaper who couldn't analyze us, dissect us, or bisect us in their ignorance and their stupidity, tried to call us a cross between Santana and Sly Stone. And they thought that was some sort of a put down. I thought it was elevation. Yeah. Here it is. I cut it out and I stuck it on this magazine. This is the brochure from the Hollywood Festival. It says, imagine a cross between the Latin rock of Santana and the funky progressions of Sly, and that's about where you'll find Demon Fuzz. Yeah.
Some memorabilia right there.
Yeah.
So in closing, any closing words you'd like to leave the audience with before we close out this interview?
Not really. I think I covered everything.
Okay.
I hope
any words of wisdom to anyone that might be any aspiring musicians?
If you're in the music business, like I said earlier on, own your work. If you're a writer and you a playwright, own your work. It can be done. Set up your own copyright company. Ascribe all your work to that copyright company. Anybody can use it with your permission, but they'll have to pay royalties, not to Tom, Dick, Harry, or company A, company B, but to you. Own your work. Copyright is where it's at. And learn your craft. Don't be half-assed and come out here trying to fake it. Ain't no fake news here. This is the real deal. When you get on a stage, you do or you die. Be real, be true to your craft, but hone your craft and own your product. You don't own it, everybody will make money off it, and you won't get a dime. Simple as that.
Well, Mr. Paddy Corea, or Paddy, I should say, thank you.
Right, you got it right.
Yes, I caught myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and just blessing the viewers with your wisdom and your recollections of your past, your present, what you're doing now currently, and overall your words of wisdom. Thank you for coming on the Rare Groove Revolution podcast, and you're always welcome to come back.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. I'm gonna show my daughter this, and she's gonna she's gonna scream from the roof to the floor and back. She's my number one fan. The one in Atlanta.
Yeah, yeah.
The other one who just got out of the military. That's my first child. We're not that close, but the one in Atlanta, she's Demon Fuzz's number one fan.
Okay. All right. So, but yeah, I mean, and you, like I said, you're welcome to come back anytime. So thank you once again.
Keep in touch, man.
We'll keep in contact. Okay.
Yes, please do. Well, you have my email and you got everything. You got my house number and everything else. So
Definitely.
good talking to you.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.